Beautiful. And I believe we are live. So welcome to The Man's Mind, the mini Facebook podcast series that is bringing awareness to the divine masculine, men's work, and creating a community of conscious coaches and men to connect and start to connect in more with their purpose and feel that they can actually journey this with other brothers. And tonight I'm really excited. I have Rama Raphael from the School of the Sacred Masculine here to talk to me. And I actually know Rama on a slightly different personal level, which brings a little bit more of excitement to this because he knew me as a little baby. And he's sort of seen my journey, and I never expected to be doing this work, and he's been doing it my entire life. So he's got a lot of knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, that certainly brings back a memory and the beautiful Bellingen days. And Bellingen was very much a birthing place. And in fact, my work with men was birthed in Bellingen in 1987.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, what can you tell us a little bit about the story about how you started working with men and your own masculine journey and connecting more with your own inner creator and source?
Thank you. Well, in a very real sense, in 1969, I found myself in a helicopter in Vietnam. And I had been asking for quite a while, actually, of what was my mission, my purpose, what was I meant to do with my life? And in that helicopter, I received a very, very clear message that my path lay in medicine, in healing. And that took, a few seconds really, but it was so profound that I could not ignore it. And so I came back from that war experience, and that's a profound initiation in itself. That's a very, very big men's group, the very worst and the very best of human behavior, men's behavior in a war zone, extreme behavior, you might say. So I came back from that, and very soon I embarked on my path in healing. So I trained as an osteopath, moved into rebirthing, somatic psychotherapy, bioenergetics. So I was actually running mixed groups. I was doing healing work, hands-on healing work. I set up some healing centers. But in 1987, I met my beloved, Kalyana, as we do. And I knew that my work was going to change in a profound way. And so I climbed my local sacred mountain, which is Wollumben, or Mount Warning, here near Byron Bay, to catch the first rays of the sun. And I heard very clearly, again, from a similar voice or energy that gave me the first message in Vietnam. And that message was to begin focusing on men, on men's work. So I moved to Bellingen from Byron, which is where my beloved was living with her 3 children. I had 1. 2 years later, we had another one. So there were 5 children. And in Bellingen, I put out my first men's retreat for 3 days, 3 nights by a beautiful river, and 12 men turned up to share the journey. And that was in 1987. I was number 13. And so began the work of really focusing on men's work, of what it means to be a man. What do those initiations mean in this day and age? And, about a year later, one of the women in the valley came up to me and she said, I want you to initiate my 13-year-old son. So I walked away and I thought, what does that mean? What does initiation of young men, of teenage men, mean in this time? And so I worked with him, and that was such a memory. And from that then began moving into working with large groups of teenagers. And I eventually moved into working in the schools, doing relationship education, sex education, sort of undercover tantric teaching, really. And in addition to expanding the men's work. And so that's now 33, 4 years ago now. And it's been my enormous honor and privilege to sit in circles of men, to assist men, to see their courage, their pain. And, we've lost a few along the way. Addiction, suicide, the pain of the men, of course, but also the immense courage and when the brothers really support each other. And, just last weekend, like we're here in lockdown, so don't tell anybody, but 37 men met together at a very powerful bush location and committed on quite a deep level to support each other through this time. We had doctors, school teachers, food growers, healers, beautiful men. Now, I was by far the elder. I was 10 years older than the next eldest men. So I was able to move into that role of being the elder and open up my sight and my vision and bring through messages for the tribe, if you like. And that was quite an honor. But it was also an honor to be with those men of various ages and their commitment, their soul commitment to their path, but also their commitment to their wives, their relationships, their children, to their community, and building, I believe, something of a cradle of the new civilization, which brings us up, to sort of to present time. But Kalyana and I, for about the previous 5 years before 2020, 6 years really, once our children left home, it freed us up to travel the world for several months each year, primarily teaching sacred union, relationship work, deep sexual work. Occasionally we'd work separately. She would work with women, I would work with men, but mostly we were doing the work together. And that was a source of great joy and satisfaction and adventure and money, of course, which helps. That all came to a halt last year, so we both began putting more of our work online.
And so the work that you were doing and you were traveling, what sort of work did that involve? Was that men's work, or was that, because I know that you do a lot of divine masculine and divine feminine work with Kalyana. So what was the basis of the work that you've been doing and traveling doing?
Primarily sacred union.
Yep.
And we would work together most of the time, but sometimes I would run, say, a one-day men's group and she would do a one-day women's. We also developed an introductory sound healing evening where we introduced ourselves and introduced the techniques of working multidimensionally, the techniques of opening the heart, opening the bridge to the higher selves, opening the bridge to our presence, and how to anchor that in a human body on earth. And so that would be our introduction. That was really sweet. I would play didgeridoo on everybody, on chakra. She would sing, and then we would bring through a transmission or a channeling, if you like, from the higher realms. And so that was the core of our work. A very big component of that work is forgiveness. And I know of experience that when two human beings truly forgive each other, then there is celebration in the universe. It's one of the most profound, beautiful, and enlightening things we can do. So that was a lot of the core of our work, as well as the basic skills on how to relate as men, women, opposite sex, same-sex relationships, all that entails. But quite a bit of that was multidimensional in the sense of helping people to unravel the karmic threads of their journey, because when there is powerful attraction between two people, there's deep love. And as we know, love brings up anything unlike itself. And people often flounder, particularly people when it's a really strong twin flame or twin soul relationship, then the stakes are even higher. And some don't make it, they run away. And so part of our work is to assist people through that journey, through the journey of being really human. Inner child work, absolutely essential. Unraveling the birth matrix, what happened at birth, what unconscious beliefs were taken on, early childhood, sexuality, sexual wounding, of course, abuse is rampant, as we know. So working with those, if you like, lower octaves of expression and wounding, but moving into far more into the truth of who we are, which is magnificent beings of love and light and power and creativity.
That's beautiful. So the way, what I'm receiving when I'm hearing your words is a lot that, you know, you would, I love the explanation of lower octave as a categorization for what I would call shadow work, or going into the depths of our unconscious and trying to find those wounds or those unconscious patterns and that sort of rule our lives and our interactions. Would you say that the men's work that you're doing and the initiation, is that based around a lot of that lower octave work as well? Can you share what your version of men's work and initiation is for the people watching?
Yeah. So it's really across the spectrum. So my ability to hold, say, one man or a group of men, or 64 men, as I once did, is to hold open the frequencies of light. So all that is held within the so-called lower chakras. I use the terms subconscious and unconscious a little differently. For me, subconscious is what has accrued from conception in this lifetime. Yeah. Whereas unconscious is our whole soul history, the Akashic record, if you like, of our soul. So I use those two terms a little differently. So for me, it's about holding open the spectrum from this lifetime, from conception, gestation, birth, early childhood, teenage, adulthood, holding open that and holding open what has been imprinted through the familial, cultural, perhaps the religious patterning. You know, we could call it the patterning of patriarchy, but the thing is, the reality is that patriarchy has its origins offshore or off-planetary. And that's part of what makes it so hard to shift. But once we move into that understanding, and then we do the relatively quick review of how quickly that has moved in, say, 100 years. And yes, we have far more to go, but the power of the feminine that is sweeping the planet in order for the Divine Mother's love to dissolve this dark matrix that's overshadowed this exquisite planet that we live upon. And for men, or more accurately, those of us who've chosen to inhabit a male body this lifetime, because we've been men and women, we've been in opposite sex, same sex, we've birthed children, we know that. And if I can assist people to open to the truth of their multidimensional nature, and we let go, we dissolve some of the amnesia that allows us to know that full history. And of course, we each have our own timing for that activation and those initiations. But we are now in a time of profound planetary initiation that is apparently unprecedented. We're in the midst of a grand experiment. And the separation between the third dimension, the third octave of light, the lower fourth, where some of those entities still hang out, traveling through the upper fourth and into the fifth and into the higher dimensions. And so, you know, on one level, I'm a sort of intergalactic travel guide. That is, my own personal journey and the initiations I've received have given me the permissions to take people on those journeys. And each journey is different and unique, depending on the soul permissions that I receive to work with people. But this is the grand initiation, the grand awakening, the grand experiment on planet Earth now. So what we're seeing is the exposure of all that has been distorted, all that's been acted out in the name of the distorted masculine. And, you know, I don't have to tell you what that is. We all know what it is.
I think the thing that really like just resonates so much is that you're doing this work on such a universal, multi-dimensional space. And when you explained about the subconscious mind and how you see the subconscious and unconscious differently, I had never actually thought of it in that way, but that resonates so deeply for me in my understanding of, yes, I've got all these subconscious programs that I help people work with, but that's this life. And it's like, we're so much more than just this life and what we come in for our soul's evolution and the expansion of each individual. So to work with men on not only their current like childhood traumas and this life issues, I guess, and to teach them or to guide them or activate within them a whole new understanding of how expansive they actually are as a being and as an essence, just is something that I haven't really seen many people do. So it's really something I'd love to understand a little bit more about how you work with these different individuals to help them come into that space of recognition or activation.
Okay, so the first and last, of course, activation and initiation is the expansion, is the purification of the heart. Mm-hmm. It's the core of everything. It's the beginning, the alpha, the omega. It is the residence of our soul. And so the purification of the heart, and with men, where the wounds have happened, where we've closed our heart down. And just because it's fresh in my memory, I was working with a man today, relatively young chronologically, but quite an ancient soul. And that's a great privilege for me now to work with the so-called younger men in their teens, 20s or 30s. But these are the starseeds who are deeply commissioned to assist with the earth. And my experience is they're relatively karma-free. And so he's a beautiful soul, very clear being in his energy, in his work, in his lifestyle. The two elements came up in his masculine pillar. And so, we have on our right, we have a masculine pillar. On our left, we have a feminine pillar, whether we're men or women. And we have a central or a soul pillar. So out of his masculine pillar emerged two, when I read his Akasha, two significant lifetimes. And the first was as a gladiator, young, strong, warrior energy, beautiful. And obviously, there's some elements of forgiveness would need to happen with that particular lifetime. Yeah. Mm. One aspect of his male unconscious that we're bringing to consciousness for healing and release. Yeah. But another aspect, quite different, completely different in body, was a tall, lean, meticulous librarian, capable of holding higher truths, capable of sitting in meditation, completely different energy. But these two facets were held in his masculine pillar. And so the work will continue around those two. We're just beginning our journey together. I'm mentioning those two because they're quite fresh. There was today. If that gives you a sense, yeah. So there'll be forgiveness will need to happen in the heart of that young warrior, the young gladiator, as he transforms that energy into being a gladiator of light, a warrior of light, who will need to stand in his truth, perhaps stand his ground or be the protector. Mm-hmm. Now, the other facet in his masculine pillar needs to know that his knowledge is valued. And his work this lifetime is very meticulous and disciplined. And I would say that's a carry through from his meticulous librarian. But his meticulous librarian needs to know that joy is the way forward now.
Yeah. So when you say work in this way and you see these past lives, or are they channeled through to you? How do you receive this information? Or does the young gentleman that you worked with, does he receive that information, have that past life memory or that feeling within his own body? Or
thank you. Yeah. Now I'm very much a seer. So once we've made a soul connection and a heart connection, and his soul gives me the permission to read and to go in,
Mhm.
and that it always must be done with permission. And so the level of permission gives me the depth and quality to read and go in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's essential. So I see, I feel, I hear.
Mhm.
I'm extremely visual on the inner, so I can describe in detail what I'm seeing. But that of itself isn't important. What is important is the willingness of somebody to release and surrender.
Mhm.
In order, let's say those two aspects, once they're healed and released, and it might be forgiveness, then more of our presence is able to anchor in our bodies on earth.
Mm.
And the connection, the braiding with our higher selves, and there are many of those, that can be strengthened as well. And at this time, one of the most important things for men is the connection to the earth. And Daniel, I don't know very much, but I do know how much our beloved Mother Earth loves us, loves all her creatures, loves all of humanity, and is immensely patient with humanity. So something I do with men, and I do, now I'm trying to adapt it online, but live, is if a man takes his navel center, his belly button, if you like,
Mhm.
and faces down on the Mother Earth and surrenders and surrenders and surrenders all attachments to women this lifetime, all the way back to Mother,
Mm.
and surrenders those to the earth. Because men attach to women.
Yes.
Yeah, we detach from Mother and then we reattach. Now, there's a very, very healthy component of that. There's a soul-driven component and a heart-driven component of seeking union.
Mhm.
But more importantly is the inner union, the inner marriage. And that's the first part, of surrendering to the earth, letting go, and then receiving the earth mother's love.
Mhm.
This takes time, of course. And then we roll over, we face the stars or the sun
Mhm.
to receive the love of the Divine Mother, to receive the purity and the power, the softness and the infinite power of that love.
Mhm.
And in this way, once those cords are dissolved, and we never cut cords, so we always dissolve cords of attachment with love. No cutting going on here, dissolving with love. Yeah. And so there's a sealing and a healing and a return to wholeness for a man.
Mhm.
So he can continue with his journey of his own inner marriage, as we all are, of both genders, of the divine feminine within and the divine masculine within. So the beautiful woman within him, the wise woman within him, can speak to him, say, hey, it's time for action. Hey, it's time to pull back and be nurtured.
Mhm.
And to let go of any of those cords of dependency with women.
There's so many things there that I want to touch on. And I'm trying to only pull the most important pieces, but the process of surrendering, for some of the men here that may find that a really interesting concept of lying down on the ground and surrendering to Mother Earth and the mother wounding and that attachment to women, which I see with so many men as they're seeking their worthiness or pleasing a woman, and that's tending to cause them a lot of suffering and disconnect or separation from themselves because they're not coming from inwardly. Is it an intention? So when you're talking about someone just lying, a man lying down and surrendering, is he physically saying anything, or is he just having that intention, or how does something like that actually take place? Is it the active intention, or is there a process involved?
Yeah, I'm guiding them through the journey. I'm holding open the portal of Mother Earth's heart. And, where this is done is often very important. So we want to go to those power spots. We want to go to the portals of Mother Earth. We want to know where the lines are: song lines, ley lines, crystal lines, dragon lines. We call on the support of Mother Earth to support the journey. So it's a guided journey. And I would probably be using some touch, guided with the breath. Consciousness rides on the breath, so we're guiding the breath. Yeah. And usually what happens is, I remember this so well in Bellingen, actually, when there was this man, and he, this was right in the beginning, and he wasn't even 40, and he had cancer, and he had a beautiful wife, 2 children, and he felt he was really going to beat this cancer. But I was told that no, he will actually pass over, and relatively soon, but he will teach many men how to die consciously. And so when I asked for a special ceremony, it was by the Bellingen River, 13 men, and this is on the 3rd day, and I asked for a very special ceremony, but I never spoke any word of what I saw about his future. I fully supported all his choices. And what happened, I asked permission of the guardians of the valley, and who arrived were 5 Aboriginal women in spirit, 2 elder women at the front, and then 3 somewhat younger, but nonetheless powerful, wise women. And they said to me, "You have our full permission and our blessing. Go ahead with your ceremony." So that was one, for example. So we call on those powers for wherever we are. And that's the first half of the journey. And then there is a sealing, an energetic sealing of the umbilicus, the belly button, if you like, of the navel chakra. Yeah. And then we open, and this is where the surrender comes in. And men, women, by your very biology, you have to surrender once a month to your bleeding. You have to surrender to birth babies. You have to surrender your body to breastfeeding, to sleepless nights, all the rest of it. Men, I feel, need to learn surrender. And it's different. It's different, particularly given the conditioning and imprinting that, the muscular armoring, all of the things that, the culture may imprint upon us. And so the nature of surrender in men is different. But when we create that sacred space and container, then by being surrendered to the earth. In Vietnam, I watched a man die. He had 2 bullet holes in his chest. And he, as I saw his guardians come to him, and I looked into his eyes, and blood was just seeping, his life was seeping out of him. But there was such a surrender and a sweetness, and I can't use any other word, a sweetness to that passing, you see. And those sacred moments are something I really encourage and support the men. It might have been, the birth of a child, or it might have even been a drug experience, like ayahuasca is really popular up here in Byron Bay. Whatever it was, when our soul tapped us on the shoulder, when our guides, angels tapped us on the shoulder, those moments, and trying to access those peak experiences, those beautiful moments of light, and draw from them, knowing that they are the truth and the truth of our soul journey.
So my heart is already really full with this. And I've got so much feeling hearing your expression in relation to some of this conversation. When you talk about men and surrender, I think it's definitely a challenge for both sexes, but specifically for men, being the strong, powerful provider, the the conditioning that comes. And I guess I put surrender a lot to the trust of the universe, and also into your trust of your higher self and intuition. Are there certain, you seem like you're very in touch with your intuition and the different messages you received, and you've shared some of that on this call. How do you help men to feel more of that level of their own, feminine, so that they can have that marrying and union within themselves?
I mean, we have, if you like, techniques. We have, usually men need to have that physical expression, coming together, having a physical expression. And there's ways of moving the emotional body. There's ways of moving pain or armoring. There's ways of using the breath. It just depends on the circumstances, and it depends on the degree of the willingness. See, but the skill in creating a container that holds all those possibilities, that holds the little boy, the vulnerable little boy, that holds the strong warrior, that holds all those open and holds that field open, so they feel safe to access. And men need to learn to trust each other again, for the brotherhood to truly come together again, for the restoration of the brotherhood. We need to learn to trust each other. Why? Because because we've been abused or betrayed or attacked or beaten verbally or physically by other men. And so for men to truly trust each other and know we have each other's backs on every level is a key part of it. Yeah. And so usually with that goes, I need to see your shadow and I need to show you mine, to know what I'm capable of, to know what I'm truly capable of. If I'm willing to lay down my life, as those men did at Port Arthur in that massacre, to lay down their bodies and take those bullets while those women and children were lying there, if I'm capable of doing that, if my protector is strong enough to protect the women and children, then I need to know that yours is too, if it really comes to the crunch. And that's, we hope, we hope and trust those extremes don't come, but we do not know. We simply do not know when we may be called, when that part of our warrior may be called, when the part of our warrior who is open and vulnerable and receptive to the universe may be called. And so to know that those possibilities are held within each of us, in our divinity, in our wholeness, in pure balance.
Would you say that the wounding or the distrust and the disconnect between men and other men, and that level of not being received, also mirrors back their own, I guess, mistrust or levels of self-hatred towards themselves through their own experience? And that by coming into men's circles and men's groups and being held in those different feelings by other men, that it helps to heal how they've seen themselves throughout their lifetime?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the core of that is pure non-judgment. We live in a very judgmental culture. And the thing that had a visitation from some inner earth people. And they said to me, what really upsets us most about humanity is the judgment that you have on each other, which simply means the lack of recognition of the divinity in each and every human being without exception. Now, in some beings, their light is a bit dimmed, shall we say. But that recognition of the divinity in all life, but within all human beings, the heart flame is the same in each of us. And to create a pure arena of deep acceptance and non-judgment, no matter what we have done. A lot of my life has been and continues to be forgiveness of self, loving self, forgiveness of self. Because in a relationship, I mean, you know, it's a wonderful equation that I can only give love to the degree to which I can receive it. And in there is another vulnerability, because when I'm giving love, it makes me feel good. But, you know, I'm sort of in control. But in order to really receive love, I need to be vulnerable. I need to be open. And the degree, you know, I usually, you know, we're running we were going to run a live men's group on the Gold Coast, and now it's going to be online with 4 facilitators. Now, one of our first processes is, okay, right now on a piece of paper, write down the percentage right now or today, the percentage to which you love yourself, right? And you might get 77. If you're lucky, you might get a 42 or a 39, or, you know, and so that's our sort of ground zero for that capacity to grow self-love, to really know that I am a being of love and light and power and grace and wisdom. And that is my truth. And what is the journey we can take together to remember that on planet Amnesia?
That's definitely a terminology that I haven't heard before, planet amnesia, which is, it adds a little bit of humorousness to the journey, which, I mean, life is meant to be fun, isn't it? And although this
it's far too serious to be taken seriously. And so let's go a little bit galactic here, because I've got a very particular connection to Sirius. You mentioned our higher self, and people often, they say our higher self. The reality is we have many higher selves.
Mm-hmm.
We have many galactic connections. For example, for the Earth right now, some of the primary galactic centers and the help is coming from Sirius, from the Pleiades, who have particular destiny and karma with Earth, also from Lyra, from Arcturus. The Arcturian healing teams and surgeons are just wonderful. They're just here to help. And so we have those particular connections. I've got a particular connection to Sirius. Any members of the audience, like you have to get in the ocean every day? Well, yeah, that's the Sirius signature, you know? To all the surfers in the audience, me, I need to be in the ocean on my board as the sun comes over the horizon. That's a Sirius connection. And Sirius brings through incredible wisdom, incredible depth, directness of communication, great warmth, whereas, say, the Pleiadian energy, which is very much my beloved stream, so all of her flower essences, incredible amount of detail and information comes through her Pleiadian stream, for example. Now, what the men need to know is a lot of the warrior energy on Earth, of the distorted, but also of the enlightened warrior energy, comes from Orion. And that's, on a much bigger scale, a large part of what we're cleaning up now. Mm-hmm. Is that distorted masculine unfeeling, or that is out of contact with the emotional body, Orion, okay? And that's the origins of this distorted masculine, the patriarchy, as we call it, on Earth. And so holding open that level of expansion, yeah, while we work with that man who does not love himself. And in which ways does he not love himself? Have a look at the habits, the physical habits, and then have a look at the habitual thought forms that are not loving. And of course, the antidote is, discipline and will. Here we go. Discipline and will and surrender. Another paradox. It takes discipline. It takes discipline to sit and meditate. It takes discipline to run a marathon. Mm-hmm. It takes will to not entertain those unloving thoughts, to catch them. You know, the Anzac motto, you know, the price of peace is eternal vigilance. Well, the price of inner peace is constant vigilance. There's that thought. And the more that we bring those to the surface, the more that we acknowledge that this is a thought moving through me, but it's not my thought. And what am I picking up from the collective? What am I picking up? Men are so and so, women are such and such. Yeah, and so that's the work, the journey. And, you know, I mean, I've helped men through hardcore addiction of substance, of porn, of habits of anger, violence, all of that, you know. Tremendous courage with the support of other men. You know, it's a truly beautiful thing. I mean, you know, I love working with women too. And, you know, with our forgiveness circles around the planet when we work together with the Sacred Union, and I remember this one quite poignantly in Poland. They're all powerful and they're all multidimensional. And by that, what I mean is, let's say for a couple of hours, Kalyana works with the women, I work with the men. We come together and there's a line. We do not cross the line. We create a sacred ceremony. And the men say to the women, as a man in relation to women, I ask forgiveness for such and such. And I support the men to have full ownership of whatever it is. And for the women to say, as a woman, I ask the man's forgiveness. And of course, and I forgive myself for whatever I've done. And in Poland, with the war and the invasion and the rape, and it was still in the atmosphere in Poland. I love Poland, love the Polish people. Spiritually evolved and very humble. Beautiful people.
That process there that you shared around, you know, a man expressing as a man to it was to the women, wasn't it?
Yes.
And being received and held in that space, and then vice versa. I know from my own experience and speaking to other people that have had the same profound feeling, that you have an amazing amount of inner healing that takes place when you can express your trauma to do with your sex, or the conditioning of the vessel that you've come in being received by the opposite energy. Do you find that there's like immense healing in that process between the two genders?
Immense, massive. Look, in Poland, for example, when these beautiful men were expressing and asking for forgiveness and forgiving the women, it works both ways, of course. Many of the women could not open their eyes and look at these men. And so I had to keep bringing them back, holding the women, holding them, until finally they could open their eyes and look at the men. And that's when the veils of projection begin to dissolve and we truly see the other, and we see the essential innocence. And we return. Sexuality is the return to innocence. All its power and passion, creativity, joy and pleasure, but the return to innocence. And that's where we're all going. That's where we come from, and it's to where we are returning. And so when we come together as man, man, woman, woman, man and woman, when we come together in that original innocence, and when we ignite the sexual current, when our heart flames are connected, then we go to the stars or we go deep into the earth. And then we come into service, into conscious service of the evolution of the planet and humanity. And that's an enormous joy. Enormous. This is, yeah, it's beyond Tantra really, but the Mother Earth is actually calling for this now. She's calling for conscious couples. Think, you know, think the pyramids, Egypt, the pharaohs, what they would do in ceremony. And I've been to Egypt twice. I've danced in that king's chamber 5 times. It's like a second home. And it's a portal directly to Sirius, but it's an immensely powerful initiation chamber. So think, you know, pharaohs, beloveds, making love and then sending for the highest good of all, the highest good of the people, the highest good of the land, of the soil, the grains, the rain, everything else. Well, we're capable of that and so much more, because we can work with the uplifting of humanity. And now we need to work on the dissolving of the fear. This fear matrix, this so-called pandemic, the fear it's generating, the division, the separation, the blame, we need the antidote, which is love, and the realization that none of us are separate. Separation is the greatest wound on the planet. This is what we're trying to heal.
And the unconscious addiction that we have to that separation is also a massive challenge. I know it has been in my life. You know, even when things are becoming too peaceful and calm, the unconscious program and looking for the trauma. So even to have the awareness and understanding that separation is what's causing the suffering. And there's only two, in my opinion, there is only two ways of living. And it's either you're living through your heart center, through love, or you're living in a form of separation, and that's it. And so coming back into that heart space in every situation that you can, because then you're connected to your true essence, I guess. And you can make compassionate, loving choices that are compassionate and loving to every being on this planet, as well as the earth and yourself. For what do you find is the main area that men have this suffering and separation? Like, what is the main I guess issue or thing that comes up in these circles and in your one-on-one that seems to be a big area of focus?
I couldn't say any one area, because it follows the whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there's trauma, if there's been trauma, abuse, betrayal, violence, then of course we need to address that trauma and move that out of the body, teach tools for when the symptoms may arise. There's that level of the work. But at its very core, and you said it very beautifully, is a belief in separation, that I am separate from the earth, I'm separate from other men, other women, I'm separate from nature. And of course, we know where that's got us. So that is the greatest wound that we're addressing. And the answer, and you put it again beautifully, is incredibly simple, is the return to the heart in every action. And so here's another paradox, where the real power lies, is in taking 100% responsibility for all of my creations without exception. There's no one to blame. There's nobody out there. The real power lies in taking 100% responsibility and bringing it home. What am I learning through this experience?
Yeah.
I'm reacting. I've been triggered. What am I learning through this experience? That's where wisdom lies, that's where power lies, and that's where love lies.
Yeah, definitely. One of the pieces that you shared earlier on around the planetary starseed connections that us as beings may have, and you mentioned around the Orion constellation and how that energy there is, I mean, I personally have done a bit of research on, I guess, the starseeds, and trying to have a greater understanding of my own soul purpose and just for my own evolution and path. And I know a bit about the Orion, and they're quite the logical mind, aren't they? And they're very disconnected. And so when we're talking about becoming more heart-centered, how do you say bring someone who's in this Orion energy field, perhaps is probably the best way to explain it, of being so in your head and logical and analytical, and even when you say have somebody who is like that goes and learns and reads all these books on Buddhism and all of these different things, but so they've got all this knowledge and understanding, but they haven't yet got the experience and the wisdom because they're still disconnected from their heart center. And this is something I personally see in a lot of men in this personal development field, where they've got the logical and the words, but they're not yet in the feeling body. So how can somebody who's so stuck in their head come into their heart?
Mm-hmm. By creating a field of deep acceptance and by holding open the template of the male emotional body. And I make that distinction because it's been unlearnt. It's been conditioned. We're all born feeling sensitive beings. Every father, every mother knows this. So what's happened along the way to close down the feeling center? So, there's a retrieving of that feeling center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The culture conditions and rewards high level left brain activity, doesn't it? And that's a challenge for men. Sure. I love my partner, I love my children, and I spend 40, 50 hours a week making decisions using my left brain, etc., in order to do that. Or perhaps I use my body. But a lot of my time and energy is spent in that particular framework with that particular focus. How do I transition from that very focused behavior into something diffuse, sensual, in the moment? And that's, in terms of tools, that transition between work and home, if you like, or work and intimacy. Mm-hmm. How do we make that transition? Because it has its place as well, focused activity. But the system, the model, sucks up far too much of that energy. May give a reward, may give financial reward, material reward, but what is the cost to the soul and what is the cost to the heart? Mm. So within the framework that a man might have, how can he better have more balance in his life? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we look at what's going on with this engineered shutdown, where people are suffering financially on every other level, then we need all the tools we can get. Every single one of them that works. Here is a range of tools. See if these work for you. These have worked for me. I have the privilege of having 50 years of earning my living by doing healing work and a whole variety of that. Yeah, doing, if you like, God's work, whatever that means. And so I've had that privilege. Many men, brilliant men, need to learn that transition between left brain into right, the expansiveness, connectivity, communication, and creativity of the right brain, and back into the heart and into the feeling body. Mm-hmm. And along the way, there's often a lot of grief. Sure, there may be some anger and rage on top, but that's on top. We can work with that. We can move that. But underneath it is the grief. So there's a deep level of grief. And even through the Akasha, there is a grieving for having been, a card-carrying member of the patriarchy. Mm-hmm. And there's a grief there, and a grief of the loss of the feeling center in order to do the things that we've done. Mm-hmm. And so the reclaiming, and in the sense that, women are coming up and out into their throat centers, into their power centers, in order to, be in the world in their power, but not in a distorted masculine way. Whereas the men have needed to go down and in, down and in, down and in, before something like a midlife crisis or an addiction or an accident or something gives them such a traumatic wake-up call. We don't need trauma wake-up calls anymore. We need conscious initiations, and that's what we endeavour to do with the men's work, and of course the teenagers. And even I was asked last year to an initiation for 2 boys turning 7. That was something new, because it's happening younger now, as we know. It's all happening younger. So to create those arenas of initiation and true initiation, which is a shift in consciousness, often a shift in responsibility, a deeper opening of the heart, an expansion of consciousness, all that is now more than ever possible as more of these higher dimensional energies and frequencies pour into the earth and into our cells and activate us. If we're capable of, and it's, you know, it's favorite word, unprecedented on earth before, but if we're willing to receive those, and I can tell you about this time last year, coming from the very heart, the very center of the great central sun of this galaxy, as an incredible gift of pure golden stardust, trillions upon trillions of particles, moving through the galaxy, being focused by the portal of our sun and focused through this solar system. And of course, into Earth, into all life on Earth, all the forms of life, all the mineral plant kingdoms, all the air, all the waters, all the animals, below the earth, upon and above the earth, and into the hearts of humanity, if we're willing to receive it. It's activating different brain centers. It's absolutely activating the heart. It'll be activating on a chakra level as we're ready, as we are ready, as we are willing. So if that gives you a glimpse of the sort of breadth and depth of the work that's possible as we help our magnificent warriors be warriors of light and warriors of the heart, then that's the work. And may we come together as men and women, as equals in the light of Mother, Father, God, Creator, Source, all that is. And side by side, build this new civilization of light together. We do it together, fearlessly. You know, this fear epidemic, we need more than ever the antidotes of love, compassion, and understanding, and empathy. And, you know, and a little bit of savvy about how this whole thing is engineered. A little bit of smarts about how it's engineered. I'm a war veteran. I know what governments are capable of. I know what men are capable of. I don't have any illusions about that. And yet, I am star-seeded, activated, like I was in that helicopter, to listen to that still small voice and follow that in whatever form. It might be birthing children, it might be sitting in a cave, it might be something, it might be in politics or law, it might be in new architecture, you know. We will each have our own stream. It may be in healing, as yours is, of course, and in mothering, in the great career on the planet. How do we teach? How do we nurture? How do we help our children not forget who they are? Because it's all about remembering. I just help men to remember.
Yeah, beautiful.
You know? And that's my responsibility. What I've received, and the initiations and teaching and blessings to all the teachers that have gifted me. But now I have a responsibility to now hand back, assist, and that's an immense privilege and an immense joy.
Yeah, definitely doing this work. And when you have that such strong understanding of what your purpose is, and you're living in alignment with your soul, and then you do have that ownership, don't you? You have that level of, the words completely gone from my mind. it's almost like there's no other option now because you're aware of that. And so it's your soul's purpose. And if you don't fulfill that, then you're not showing up for yourself or the collective. So imagine the work that you're doing in the school of the sacred masculine is on everything that we've just talked about. What are the other works that you're doing, and how can people get in touch with you around if they want to work with you or they want to get in more information? And you said you've got a lot of online training now. Can you share some of the work that you have available for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, well, as I said, we were traveling a lot, and I've now put a series of 4 6-week webinars, so 24 recordings. I did them in this order. I did Soul Mastery Level 1, Soul Mastery Level 2, and then I did the Yeshua Codes of the Sacred Masculine, and more recently the Ancient Father Circle. And each one of those is a 6-week series, and they're accessible on the website. But of course, my major project at the moment is the School of the Sacred Masculine. So that starts next month, October. It's for 24 men. It's limited to 24 men. And it's a 10-month, 44-week online intensive. And I'm not alone. I have a team of 6, 3 men, 3 women. It's primarily the men who are delivering the work. I'm the principal teacher, of course, and the women are offering their tremendous wisdom and support as well. And so it's online. And then sometime in the future, I have a 10-day live retreat here at Rosebank, which is not that far from where I live, in a magnificent and dedicated portal. But I've said that's dates to be advised depending on planetary conditions. Yeah. But now the online school is very open. So if you just go to School of the Sacred Masculine, a beautiful website designed by our lovely daughter Carly, graphic designer, that'll give you all the details, information, connect with me. And I do one-to-one sessions. These days I get called in as the resident elder, as I did last weekend, and that's such an honor and a privilege to be able to support the magnificent younger men. And it's been in the journey. I saw it with the teenagers I worked with. When I went into the schools for a while, I saw a real progression in consciousness, in awareness. Sometimes it feels like we take 3 steps forward and 2 backwards, but more and more of the shadow is being exposed. We've seen it in Australian politics, etc. And although it looks ugly, it is ugly. It's very ugly. But we are in the age of exposure, where all of that shadow is being brought to the surface to be healed and loved, all of it. Yeah, that's the very big. This is Project Earth, or more correctly, Project Humanity. The Earth is fine, of course, if she's left alone to do what she needs to do. And so that's the big picture on this. Yeah. Yeah,
I love that. The little piece of the Earth is fine, and the Earth will regenerate and heal itself. It's definitely about Project Humanity, and I think that understanding that, we all have to do our part inwardly to change what's going on collectively. If people are wanting to find you for relationship work as well, and the different things that you do with Kellyanna, I personally have my own interest in conscious relationships. It's something that I find very fascinating, around the masculine and feminine dynamics and conscious union. Where can people go to find that information?
Our website is Rose of Raphael. So maybe we can post these. So the website for the school is School of the Sacred Masculine, and our website for other work, and it's all intertwined, is Rose of Raphael.
Yeah, beautiful. I'll make sure that I put all the links in the comments below, and when it's uploaded to YouTube, I'll link both of those websites. You don't have any Facebook pages or Instagram?
Yeah.
You do?
Facebook, yeah.
Beautiful. So people can contact you through there as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, through there. They're the streams. And so, the call is now out. See, there'll be 24 men who are sole contracted to come to the school. Mm-hmm. Now, so far, I've got this spread across the planet. I've got India, Africa, Geneva, New York, Tasmania, mainland Australia, Bolivia. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah. So these are beautiful. I mean, I feel very honoured, very gifted, and quite a range of age, from 30 to 69, actually. A whole range of life experiences in here, but men very dedicated to their path. And so I feel very honoured because we can work together. The other thing I think is really important, it's something deeply embedded in the psyche of men, is the idea of the solo emissary. And on a spiritual level, that means I work on my own projects, and we see that acting out in the Western male psyche, don't we? And that's what we're trying to heal. Yes, it's great to be independent and resourceful up to a point, but it's much more fun to do it together. Collaboration achieves so much more. And on the spiritual level, on the higher levels, that's how the councils meet. They meet in circle, in high level consciousness. They receive from the divine plan. They implement it. Now, they don't have to do all the physical things that we need to do. So they can just go to rest in the arms of the infinite creator and all the love and light and power of that. That's the template of working in we consciousness, in collaboration. And that's what we need to learn. I mean, we have the template of the original people of Australia for how many thousands of years, working in such cooperation. And there's so much, but we need to do that on a much higher octave now, by which we're connected deeply to the earth, but we're also reclaiming our rightful place as citizens of the universe. Now, the earth's been under quarantine. It hasn't, those earthlings, they're just not particularly safe, until they've evolved to a certain level. But every day, the quotient of light on the planet is growing and growing and growing. And that quotient of light, when we hit that critical mass, where a majority of humanity are in service to other rather than in service to self, that's when exponentially we'll begin to see the miracles manifest. We know it's happening already. I know, Danielle, you and I, we have that already in our lives if we're willing to let it in. Yeah? And we can teach from that space. Synchronicities, the magic, and reclaiming all of those skills that we've forgotten, really. Yeah.
And that's definitely the point to close off, I think, on this, is what this series was about, was showing that the masculine don't have to have that complete independence in doing this journey alone. There are so many resources. There are so many different men's groups and different containers to connect, and it is about it's built into our DNA to have connection and to come into unity. And that's what this human experience is really about, is yes, I am an individual, but I am you. We are one. And that level of connecting back so that we can come more into ourselves. And hopefully there will be lots of different men that are feeling way more supported now through this series, and definitely through your very expansive chat. And it's been beautiful to hear such a multidimensional perspective, and I'm so grateful for you joining. Thank you so much for your time here. It's been very different to the different energies that have come through, and just a beautiful perspective shared from your heart. So thank you so much, Rama.
You're so welcome, Danielle. So welcome. Would you like me to finish on, I once took a trip to Andromeda.
Oh, okay.
And on Andromeda, it was quite a shock at first because of the scale, the size of things. And I was taken above a harbour, beautiful harbour. And I was struck by many things, the beauty and silence of the architecture and the technology. And that was stunning in itself. The purity of, if you like, the atmosphere or the air. But even stronger was a civilization living under the law of oneness. There was no dark matrix. Every single member of that civilization was loved, cherished, honored, and supported to bring through their unique creative expression of the divine. Every child, every woman, every being, they're not human, they're Andromedans, but that is the destiny of the earth. Once this matrix is dissolved, once we remember the universal laws, the law of love, the law of oneness, the law of grace, and we start living those laws, and we take our place as an evolved civilization. This is the destiny of the earth. It's the destiny of humanity, and the earth is taking her with us if we choose, which means a dissolving of many, 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 many belief systems that no longer serve us. Love is the only law, the only law.
Yeah.
I'll leave you on that one, my dear.
Yeah,
I'll leave
definitely.
you.
Let's leave it on that.
Thank you.
Love is the only law. Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night. You're so welcome.